So let me start again. I was starting to introduce this call. So hello everyone. I'm Jérôme Paris, EENA's Managing Director, and today I'm going to host the second in a series of webinars dedicated to showcasing innovative PSAPs in Europe and beyond. Today we are going to hear from Zurich's PSAP, one of the largest PSAP in Switzerland. The presenters will discuss the practical impact in a PSAP of the implementation of NextGen 112, as well also as advanced mobile location and eCall. So basically this webinar will show how these technologies have been integrated into the PSAP's operations and the call takers work. So we have two speakers today. Thank you to both of them for accepting to present during this webinar. We have Andreas Bieler, Head of Telecommunication at the Police Technology and Information Technology Switzerland, which has actively been part in the development of NG112 in Switzerland. And our second speaker is the First Lieutenant Gregor Gysi, Technical Head of the Protection and Rescue Zurich PSAP, which is basically covering emergency communication for 144, so emergency medical services, and 118, fire and rescue, in the canton of Zurich. They will tell you more about them in a few seconds. Before we go further, let me remind you that this webinar is automatically captioned in your language. So to activate the captions, you have the way to do it. You have the instructions written on the screen. So feel free to use this feature. Please also note that this webinar is recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel later on. So now, Andreas, Gregor, it's a pleasure for us at EENA to welcome you to this webinar, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Andreas, you are also on mute. Same mistake as mine.
I see it, yes, thank you. Thank you very much that we are invited to present the situation of emergency call in Switzerland. And we have, next slide, please. We have the following agenda. First, a little bit about what's the emergency call network in Switzerland, the organization of the emergency call in Switzerland, the status from next generation 112 in Switzerland. Then comes a part from Gregor Gysi, where he shows how the NG112 is integrated and how they work by Protection and Rescue Zurich. And on the end, and still some slides about the challenges from our side of view for the PSAPs here in Switzerland, where we see really the challenges in the future to it. Then next slide. From my side, who we are. My side, I'm working for Police Technology and Information Switzerland. I'm the head of telecommunications from the Confederation and the cantons, and there I'm responsible too for the area of the emergency calls. Then Gregor, I think you can present yourself.
Yeah, hello to everyone, and thanks as well from my side to have the possibility to show you something what we did in Switzerland. And as you can see, I'm the technical head and the deputy head of the EOCC of Protection and Rescue Zurich, and we'll see later on which part of Switzerland we cover and what exactly we do. So see you later on.
Next slide. The situation in Switzerland, I think the most part, like all over it is, every second counts in an emergency. That's for us the spoken word too. We have in Switzerland 7 official emergency numbers. the 112 as an European emergency number. 911 will be rerouted to 112. Then we have 117 for the police, 118 for the fire brigade, 144 for the ambulance, 143 for the offered hand, 145 for the TOCs, and 147 for Pro Juventute. That's offered hand for minors. Approximately, we have between 10,000 and 12,000 emergency calls every day. That means in the last year we had 4,146,000 emergency calls. And NG 112 via list proxy changeover is successfully implemented here in Switzerland, and we are happy that is running now since beginning of this year. Next slide. All the emergency numbers for the police, fire service, and ambulance are coordinated by the emergency calls organization. Is the single point of contact for the emergency calls and represents really all the concerns of the emergency call organizations, and we define the technical and operational standards what is possible. That means we look for it, what we have to do, how we go forward, and look that this will be then implemented by us here in Switzerland to do it. The emergency call organizations works on the conference of the cantonal police commanders, 2 for the Inter-Association Rescue Service, and 2 the Fire Service Coordination of Switzerland. We are really put together the emergency call organizations. Really is important that we are not speaking for one organization like the police or only the fire services. We are really working for all of them, and we represent all the emergency calls here in Switzerland. With the emergency call strategy of the 3rd of February 2016, the political organizations overlaying, they put us in charge to be the representatives for all the cases of emergency calls. You can go to the next slide. Here you see how is the organization about the emergency call in Switzerland. The part on the top is the political area, and the down part is the organization of emergency calls with the Steuerungsausschuss Notruf, then the technical part and the tactical part as a technical and operational area. You can go to the next slide. We have the Emergency Call Steering Committee. The steering committee is the highest operational authority in the area of emergency call, and is made up representative to the user organizations and with the regulatory authority. In the RV Technik is the view of the operational and tactical requirements about the technical feasibility. It develops the technical standards and specifications. As example, the implementation of NG 112 in the technical area here in Switzerland. The RV Taktik defines the operational and tactical requirements in relation to the operational implementation, and they are responsible to the operational and tactical standards and guidelines for all the PSAPs in Switzerland. Then we have a business office, makes the completely part about the emergency call organizations. We take the minutes of the meetings of the steering committee. We support the organization in administrative matters, and we also take the contact. We are a single point of contact and the Trier Center for Inquiries. Next slide, please. On 13th of January this year, NG 112 with eCall 112 AML with MSD has successfully introduced nationwide in Switzerland. All our 55 PSAPs in Switzerland are productively accessed to the central list proxy to obtain the localization onto the minimum set of data. All Swiss MNOs, we have 3 ones of them in Switzerland, provide the localization and the minimum set of data via the central list proxy. All the national and international emergency numbers that are authorized in Switzerland are supported. And NG112 is activated and productive for iOS, Android, and still for Harmony. This only is possible to the supports of all the involved parties. That means the PSAP, the voice service provider, but to the regulatory authorities. And the project was just successfully implemented on time and budget within 2 years. We was a little bit late, but we realized it in 2 years. And it was really only possible because we work all together and we saw it as a project for everybody, for the citizens here in Switzerland. And about this was really a success that we finished with 13th of January with that all the PSAPs was productively accessed to the central list proxy. Next slide, please. Here you see the implementation, how it's made in Switzerland. We have the callers on the left side, then the voice service provider. They send the emergency call via SIP. Over there we get the rerouting to the right PSAP, and parallel to this, they give the information to the via list proxy inside the database, and the PSAP can take the information about the location and minimum set of data via list proxy from the central list information service database and can take there the data. The data stays there about 4 hours, and after then the data are automatically deleted, and that nobody, every PSAP has the right to take the data if they have the information from the number. That means too, if you have to give the case from the fire brigade to the police or opposite, we can give our partners the number, and with the number they can take the data by themselves via list proxy from the database. Next slide. Here I give the word to Gregor. He can explain how it works and how it's implemented and what was the results by Schutz und Rettung Zurich.
Yes, thank you, Andreas. And as you could see, that we have an organization in Switzerland that does all that work in behind, also on the regulation side. And it's a pleasure for me to work in that organization and the technical part, as well as I'm working at the PSAP, and I had to implement it in our PSAP by myself with my colleagues together. And so, yes, it was a good thing for me to prove if what we did in that organization, if that works as well in everyday work. I know we are, for Switzerland, one of the biggest PSAPs compared to others. Yes, I know Switzerland is small. And also I know that AML and all the other parts, a lot of you have a lot of experience with it. So yeah, let me share a little bit what we did and how we did it and what the tasks are. We are working on them right now. So we can see on the next slide the area we cover with our PSAP. It's 4 of the 23 cantons in Switzerland. It's 1 of the 55 PSAPs we have in Switzerland. And the green part is what we cover for 144 for the ambulance service. And the main part in the middle, the biggest canton, Zurich, is what we cover for 118 as well. So you can see it's around 2 million people in our area, and it's nearly 170,000 emergency calls we have every year. And we have a staff of around 58 operators at the ECC in normal 24/7 shifts, so 12-hour shifts for everyone. During the day, around 12 to 14 people at work, and during the night, we are 5. So Protection and Rescue Zurich is part of the city of Zurich. It's there also fire brigade and medical service, ambulance service. But as PSAP, we cover a little bit bigger area. That's because of all the technical investigations we had to do. We are ready to do so. What we see on that graphic is also that our part we are covering is very different. We have lakes, we have rivers, we have Zurich as one of the biggest cities in Switzerland. We have also mountains with skiing areas, etc. So yes, that's why we are a good PSAP to test also things like NG112, etc. And that's also why we were one of the first PSAP that implemented it in summer 2022 already. And yes, we are running it now for nearly 1.5 years. On the next slide, we see how we are organized in our PSAP. So we are working in the classical call-taking dispatching system. Calls are coming in on our call-taking places, are there managed, and all the stuff get in. And if we have a real event, it's transferred to our dispatchers, and they send out our ambulances and fire brigades. So that's mainly how we work. Medical transport is a separate part, but integrated in our PSAP. And we have extended workplaces in case of thunderstorms or things like that, that we are able to level up the people in the PSAP in a short way. So on the next slide, we see what we did in the last years. We invested a lot in our geographical information system. We had a lot of additional data compared to earlier years. So we are able now to exchange the different levels, the different layers we have in our system on a regular basis. So addresses for whole Switzerland, for example, or also community information, borders, etc. We can share it on a really short way. We can change it. We have also what we see here in blue, for example, with the Swiss railways, the kilometers of every railway line that's coordinated with them in the same way we did that with national motorways. So that's important to us, that we speak the same language than our partners. And it's also important that we speak the same language as the people seeking help. That's why we have additionally OpenStreetMap integrated. And so we are able to see the world more or less like the people outside do it as well. So that was one of the bases we had to do before we started with all other work, that we can combine every of this information when we are looking for an emergency place. So yeah, there are in everyday life a lot of problems we have to manage, and we see on the next slide. Yeah, we have here an empty map. If you press once, we see the first red star. If you do it a second one, we see one more, and the third one, we see 3 stars. And what we see here is a community merger. These 3 red stars, in earlier years, we had 3 communities, and every of that community had a Gotthard Street, Gotthardstraße, and every one of them gave the addresses, house numbers. And they merged, and it's now one community. We have 3 localities in that community with different postal codes, but we have one Gotthardstraße. And what we see here is on that 3 red stars, we have 3 times the Gotthardstraße 20. And if you're driving here by bike or by car, trust me, no one knows in which postal code they are. They only know the road and the number. And that's one of the problems we have. And that's an example why it's so important for us that we have enough information to the localization automatically transferred to the PSAP during the emergency call. So we can go further on. And once more. And yes, there we are. For us, it was really easy to implement the whole NG112 on the technical part. We saw it before. We have a central list proxy. And yeah, what we see there is that we had to implement only one interface to get all that information in. And yeah, we see it here. It works. It's really accurate, and it works in the mountains and on the lakes as well. So funny was that we had only 2 years to implement it in whole Switzerland. That's true. But we have had intense political years, 4 to 6 years before, to change all the regulations that we were able to do that as well. The good thing with the list proxy we have now is that not every PSAP has to be ready for SIP to the desk. We are able to get all that information as we know the number of the caller. And we see it later on, what that is also a good thing for us. It makes it really easy to exchange calls between different PSAPs. But, and that's true, we will have to implement SIP to the desk in every PSAP in the next years in whole Switzerland. I know a lot of PSAPs are working on such projects that we are ready for next level services on NG112, upcoming services like real-time text, etc. So that's one of the things that are going on, and Andreas will you show it later on a little bit. So what we did is we implemented it more or less without any trainings to our colleagues, and we see it here on the lake. It's really easy to find the place as possible where a ship has a problem, or in the mountains on which mountain paths the emergency call came from and where they are walking to. And if we look at the next slide, we see that it works in the urban areas as well. So yeah, it's really easy to see if a call comes from outside of a building, or if the address that is dictated to us is communicated, if that information is accurate or is not. So yeah, what I hear if I speak to our call takers is that implementing NG112 is one of the best things we have done in recent years, and they like it very much. So they use it in their everyday life. And if we go to the next slide, yeah, they are really happy with it. So we have not only the AML, so the device-based localization, we see it here in yellow on the left-hand side, or in magenta on the right-hand side. That's one of the learnings we had during the last time, that we have to change from yellow to magenta because it's better in the view. But we have in the blue circles, we have also the net-based location. And the good thing with net-based location is that we have the net-based location every time in every call and from the first second we take the call. And AML, as you all know, has 3 to 5 seconds until we see it. And so it's possible to us to really quick zoom to the right place on the map and to be in the region where we are looking for the emergency place from the start. But what we see here as well is that AML is much more accurate than the net-based location, especially in the left image. You see really good that because of reflections on the lake, etc., the net-based location has some problems. And yeah, AML, if it's provided, is a real good help. So let us go to the next slide. What we see here really nice is the work together between two PSAPs. So if we look on the left-hand side, that's an incoming eCall 112 that's automatically transferred to 112 in Switzerland. 112 is handled by the police. They get the call in, and they have also the whole MSD. And yeah, it's really easy for them to dispatch the police. And if they have also the need for ambulance or fire services, they can give the call to the next PSAP. And if we know the caller number, we're able also as second PSAP to get the whole data from the list proxy to import it in our system and to work with that. So we do not have to build up regulations on how to exchange data between the PSAPs, because all that data regulations are made by Swiss governmental law, and it's really easy without that part we have to solve. And also the example on the right-hand side where we see an event on the motorway, and it's really easy to snap it to 1 of the kilometers. So that's how the PSAPs are working together in an emergency call and also in else everyday life as well. So last slide from my side, the next. Yeah, some challenges we had, that's true. And there are also some challenges we are working on them right now on everyday basis. So one thing is that in the last years, our call takers were trained to use postal addresses whenever possible. And now we are working with AML, and we have completely new possibilities to set the event place much more accurate and to change that mindset that also only a street name with postal code and a community is a good event address. That is one of the parts we are working right now. And that leads me to the next part. It's not only for us as PSAP that changed a lot. It's also for our people working outside. They get the information in another way. Earlier on, we created an event. We sent out an email and they had all the information. And now it's more that they're working with apps. They are working with updated information and every second from our side. So they have to change their mind as well, that during the way to the scene and at the scene, they get more and more information from our side, and they have to be trained as well. And what we see on the right-hand side is an example from the street parade. You can imagine 1 million people dancing around in the city center of Zurich. And normally what we see here is a real good position. And if I send an ambulance at scene, they would find the patient no problem. But if you have only in that yellow circle, what could I say, 100 people dancing around, it's not so easy to really recognize the patients itself. And that's one of the things we had to change, that they not get only an address or so, they get in between a coordinate, a map on an app, so that it's much more easier to catch the people outside. So that's the work between PSAP and the ambulance personnel itself. They had to change their way how to find the scene for themselves. And that's already in doing that. It's also a change in mindset. And I think that will need some more time in the next time to adopt it and to work further on. So nearly the last point, one click, please. That's a cap made by Swisscom. They have a big team in a telecommunication provider to implement NG112 in the last 2 years. And what I can say from my side is, yes, we love NG112. NG112 for us, it's 112 is a synonym for every emergency number we have. And no, we won't miss it. And we are happy to see what's going on in the future around NG112, despite we know that we have a lot to do, for example, to ensure that we have SIP to the desk, that we are ready for all the new features that we can implement on that way. So next one is back to Andreas. Thank you.
Thank you, Greggy. Here we see short what we see from our side here in Switzerland from the PSAP. What is the biggest challenge we have in the future? We still have to work on it. One of the problems we have is the IoT, OTT antivirus software. We have an increased number of unintentional emergency calls to the PSAP. That's the impact we have. One example to it was the case of pocket calls last year from Android. We have a normally number of emergency calls per day, more or less between 12,000 and 13,000 calls. The number of emergency call May 23 was 20,000 emergency call plus. Most of them you cannot call back because they don't find out that they have made an automatically call. The problem overall is the trigger is really the new software on mobile devices led to increase unintentional emergency call volumes. Pocket calls example. The other one was the case with from Apple with the shock detection. As you can imagine, what would be if both of these impacts would be on the same time, then we would have the pocket calls from Android, inclusive the shock detection from Apple. This would be a big problem, and I'm not sure if all of our PSAPs could handle the amount of additional calls in this time. We already had enough to do just with one case with pocket calls. This brings us to the can go to the next slide. What we need from our side, from the perspective from the PSAPs, we need more binding international standards. more telecommunication regulatory if they bring some software, new functions on it. We need clear SLAs with all the parties are involved, the MNOs, PSAP device manufacturers, software suppliers, and control and consequences too for non-compliance with the requirements, because we see as more it goes further, the possibilities to start to be better. You always have more and more possibility what you can do, but before you put them in active, that you put productive, it's really important that they speak with us, because the impact to the PSAP is really big. This is one of the biggest challenges we see in the future. Can we go on the next slide, please? Another part is clear, the barrier-free communication, that it is important that all parties are involved, necessary before we have a technical solution. That means not only the people has a problem and want to communicate, made an emergency call or emergency information, is too important that the people by the other side, by the PSAP, the call takers, this one have to respond to it, that they are inside the solution, that they can take to what they can do. Because the tasks from our side of view, they are very special and complex. People need specialized support, websites, the solutions are specialized, the routings that they get to the right PSAP, because if you have, like in Switzerland, 55 PSAP, it's not clear that every PSAP has the possibility to answer and give help to these people. And the translator availability is not only in Europe, here too in Switzerland, is you don't have 24/7 availability from the translators. That's for us is one of the biggest challenges for the futures, and we are waiting there too, in which direction European Union is going, is the EENA is going, because here in Switzerland too, if you want to make a solution, it has to be international standards. We don't want implemented Swiss standard. We need an international standard like it's NG 112. Next slide, please. Big challenge for us is too, we see here the reference model of we have here in Switzerland about emergency calls. We have actors all over the network. You have on one side the emergency callers, then they have the OS and hardware suppliers of antiviruses. You have network infrastructure providers. You have the voice service provider, mobile network operators, universal license holders, emergency call centers, and on the end then emergency call centers for the PSAP over it. Just by the pictures you see that you have a lot of stakeholders in the completely process of an emergency call is very difficult. The life cycles start to be always faster and faster. The possibilities start to change. The needs start to change. The handling of the people start to change. That means too for the PSAP is a big challenge that you can be ready for every need, what the people has, what the citizen has, and this is for us in the future too, that we have a stable reference model overall that works and that we are ready on the right time, especially too if you see then that all has to be too by the regulatory authority, that has to be clear what you can do and what you cannot do. This is a big challenge for the future still here in Switzerland. Then the next slide. And last not least, a problem, the switching off from 2G, 3G, whereas in Switzerland already is really in the near future. 2G is already away. We still have 3G, but the end of life of 3G is in Switzerland already communicated. That means emergency call via 4G, 5Gs, or in the future the next generations is a big challenge for us, because the situation should be, emergency calls should be across the borders and about all over mobile networks. The people shouldn't have to think about it works, it doesn't work. It has to work all over. And the challenge is about this unauthenticated emergency roaming calls, 4G, the device behavior between 4 and 5Gs. By this example, national roaming. One example is iOS 12 or similar. All the new devices, modems, next generation eCall 112, and then to the communication with the population, that they know at which time what is running, what is not running, when it's finished, which devices still are working and not. This is a big challenge for the society here in Switzerland, but too for the PSAP, because we have to handle with them. Then you can go to the next page. This is all from my side too. The final word about this emergency calls, it's about the people and it's about seconds that count. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Gregor. We have a few questions. So I don't know if you see them, otherwise I will read them. We have two questions from Christophe and Guyenne. So let me read. Yeah, he asked the question during your presentation, so I hope you will get what he says. Your slide is only mentioning full SIP emergency call. Does it mean that your whole network is full SIP, or there still is remaining RTC but insignificant part? So this is the first part of the question, and maybe I can continue because it's related. If the telecommunication environment is full SIP, can the SIP signaling also convey the location information retrieved with an appropriate network initiator command for activating the EU GPS while the emergency call, instead of combining AML system? And last, what about support for national or international roamers in? Does it make sense to you, Gregor?
I try it, Andreas, and you give some background information as well afterwards, if I cover not everything in that. So thank you for that question. Yeah, so the environment in Switzerland is not fully SIP. That has two main reasons. One is we have 3G for mobile devices already running or always running again. I think the fade out is planned until 2025. So we need 2 years until we have full SIP environment on that side. But also on the other side, despite everything is SIP to the PSAP, we have session border controllers at every PSAP, but not every PSAP has SIP to the desk. We have some PSAPs running their systems in ISDN environment, and that's why we implemented in Switzerland the whole solution using that LIS proxy that the MNOs and the voice service providers adapt that information, take it out of the streams, also for eCall 112 and NG eCall as well. So that's why it's done with that LIS proxy. And the whole thing around location by reference, etc., that will come in the future. That's planned also to use next features like RTT, etc. So that needs some time, and that's why we did that solution in between with that LIS proxy. also to ensure that not every PSAP, our 55s, have to implement everything out to the device that is calling. That's why we did it as we did. But I think in the future that will change, that we will have more possibilities that's coming from the standards, that's coming also in SIP standard as well. Is that more or less your question answered?
One part for the completely part is too. Here in Switzerland, we have 26 cantons, and each of the cantons is independent. That means they have their own picture face, they have their own time, what they do, they're politically are independent, and the emergency call is a cantonal part. That means you cannot go and tell till then and then you have to be realized all. Each canton has their own time where he can realize something. We cannot make an order to it about this. You don't have the possibility, as example, from a centralized country like France or other countries, you can tell it, you make now just like this. Each canton can realize and make the update to this time when he get the money from the taxes to pay this. About this, we have a longer time too till each canton realized SIP to the desk by their own PSAP. And about this, we need longer time too. This was to a reason that we realized the list proxy was to one of the reason the part till when it's possible, because then you only have to make one interface to the list proxy, and this helps them too that we can go so fast through it. If you would have to provide SIP to the desk for everybody, for each PSAP, we wouldn't have any chance to realize it in this short time of 2 years, because normally the phase till you get the money to realize in each of the 26 cantons for the 55 PSAPs, this need much longer time.
Thank you both. Christoph says, thank you for your answers. Well, thank you very much. We have another question from Ganesh Prasad. So it's a bit less technical here. He's asking if there is any media role to popularize 112 service. So I guess he's asking if how do you promote 112 service in your country?
In Switzerland is like this. We have the 3 official, I tell now, the bigger numbers, the emergency numbers, 117, 118, and 114, police, fire brigade, and ambulance. And we are absolutely happy with this, because for us, what we see, 112 a lot of times are misused, not as an emergency number, for all other things, but not for emergency calls. And we don't have the time to carry them to go further with this too. That means we use 112. That means if somebody call 112, it will be redirected to the police. We take these numbers, but we see a big benefit for us if the call taker already make the triage to where he wants to go. This helps us. In this example, if you have a float or like this, we have a lot of calls by 118 by the fire brigade. That means too, if you have a 144, an ambulance, or the 117 for the police, you know that this one is most of the time doesn't have to do anything with the float, that you could put a little bit to the priorities of the calls that is on the right place. If you see just 112, everything comes inside like this, you have to ask first, and the other one, okay, my cellar is full of water, the next one, my cellar is full of water, and after the number 233 is then, okay, somebody break inside my house, or my house is on fire from another place. This helps us too a little bit to make the triage to act faster before you have to go. That means you have the right PSAP directly connected to the person need help. In Switzerland, the position is that we still go further with our 3 numbers for the fire brigade, ambulance, and police. That means we don't actually push 112.
Okay, thank you for this full answer and position on that. Then there is another question on back to NG112. What support do you see from NG112 in terms of multilingualism?
I have to tell I have a
Let
little bit of
me
problem to understand this. What is the question?
Yeah, but what I can say as a PSAP, you know, we are one of the named default routing PSAPs in Switzerland. What means if we have technical problems, for example, or an emergency call is not able to be routed technically to the correct PSAP somewhere in Switzerland, they are directed to us. So what we get is some calls from whole Switzerland. And yes, we have 4 languages in Switzerland, and that's a challenge to us because if someone from Geneva arrives on our PSAP, we have to speak French. What we have a good thing with NG112 is that we know where the call is coming from. So it's really easy for us to redirect that call to the correct PSAP because we see where the call comes. The language itself, with NG112, we have not that much benefit out of it. That's at our PSAP separate project we do. We're working on speech-to-text services to get out some information in phrases and also to implement in next time automatic translations that we can support that a little bit. So NG112 is for us more or less the localization that helps us really much in everyday life.
Okay, thank you. Actually, on this very topic of translation, let's say interpretation, there are many tools now providing speech to text, even sometimes speech to text to voice to speech, and we are trialing that in the project that EENA is about to launch, using AI tools to help emergency services, and one of the scenario is to trial exactly that. So the speech-to-text solution to help handling calls in a foreign language. So this is something we are going to trial, and we're going to have also a few presentations about that at the annual event in 2 weeks, actually. Let me check if there is any other question. Yes, there is another one. How do you convey AML data from the terminal to the VSP? Is it by SMS, HTTP, or both?
Currently in Switzerland, it's SMS. That's also because of 3G that is already running, but we are working to extend it to HTTP as well, because we are sure we need it for 4G and 5G in the future. And I saw there is one question a little before. Where did I see that? Yes, it's also the same topic to the national and the international roamers. So our systems in Switzerland are able to work with national and international roamers. That works, but because we are working with SMS, we do not have the AML position in every call from such roamers. And that's also a topic we are addressing together with the MNOs during the implementation or the change for the emergency calls from 3G to 4G and 5G. That's a project that is running right now in Switzerland.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other question? Oh, yes, I see another one. So there is a question about one of your slides. In the call takers slide, what means SL24H?
Yes, that's our shift leader we have there. That's the person that leads the shifts and organizes the operation in our PSAP. And that's a person that is that's a place we have 24/7 there in place. So it's not only the call takers and dispatchers working there. So we have every time an officer at work that coordinates and that looks that everything went well.
Thank you, Gregor. We have another question. Here, I'm not sure you will have the answer, but I will ask it. What is police response vehicle standards response time in advanced countries? It's quite a general question. I'm not sure you, at least, maybe you have this data for Switzerland at least.
Yeah, in Switzerland is like this because still the police is per canton. Then each canton has a different time. But you have to see too is different too if you're urban area, if you're inside the mountains like this, is a big difference. As example, we have the canton of Wallis. They have so many valleys there like this. There you have a much longer time. That's not about the police, but as example about the ambulance. They have to put there two special people. They are there inside that they can make a first help like this because the ambulance need too long time till they are there. This is about the geographical part of it. With the valleys like this, you need much longer. If you are in other areas, then you're much faster. You have highways, you don't have highways. It's really different from the topographic area you are, and it's really different too from canton to canton, which resources you have, which you resources don't have. As example, in the town of Zurich, just the town of Zurich, the police from the town of Zurich, they are the third biggest police corps in Switzerland. You can imagine how many people they have. That means the response time from them is much faster than if you go to Graubünden by Davos in this area, where you have much less people. That means you have much less police people too. They need a longer time till they reach the places. About this, we don't have a general one over whole Switzerland.
But what I can say here is that, for example, in the urban areas in Zurich, our target is for ambulances and fire brigade that we are in 10 minutes at scene after the alarm. That's the target. The regulation is that we do that in 15 minutes. So yes, you see that's what we try to reach, and that's our goal. And all partners are working on that target that we can reach that. And normally it fits.
Thank you. I think we have a last question before the end of this webinar. It's another question from Christophe and Guillen. So he says that French regulation demand steer shaken mechanism implementation from controlling abusive calls from commercial call centers. What about the status in Switzerland?
Okay, that the call center make abusing calls to emergency number is seldom in Switzerland, I would tell now. But we have a problem too that we have abusive calls. One of the biggest police central in Switzerland, they have 1/3 of the calls from one person. She's psychologically ill. You cannot take the device away from her. That's the judge told she can stay with the device. She made really 1/3 of the calls of all emergency calls. Just one person is a problem too we have here in Switzerland. We are looking too with the regulation authority, what we can do. As example, we have the bigger problem overall is the false calls, as example, from automatically devices. If it's now, also, yeah, we had already some cars too. They have the NG112 device inside, and they made them per 5 minutes 800 calls. Is still a lot. Then you reach the maximum calls for whole Switzerland per day really fast. This is a problem too, what we have, what you can do with it, too about the adhesive, but too what you can do in this direction is a problem by us too. We are working with the regulation authority together, what we can do that, and still with the MNOs, what we can do that we can save the PSAP from these calls. Is a big problem too in Switzerland, yes, and will be always worse and worse.
Thank you, Andreas. So I will have to close the call now. So again, thank you very much for your presentation. I think it was very informative for everyone. A few things, as I said at the beginning of the call, this webinar was recorded, so it will be uploaded soon on our YouTube channel, and it will be also accessible on EENA website. As you can see here, if you go on this, if you follow the URL that is on the screen, you can check all the past webinars that we ran, and you can also see the list of upcoming webinars. Today, you will not see any webinar in the list. We are doing kind of a break before EENA annual event. As most of you may know, it's going to happen soon on 24, 25, and 26 of April in Valencia, Spain. I hope you will be there. You can see the overview of the program on the screen. You can see also the event website address, so feel free to visit it, and I hope I will see most of you in Valencia in 2 weeks. I wish you a very good afternoon, maybe very good morning for some of you. We see you all very soon. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.